past the clouds, over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star.
Well, greetings. Welcome back as always, and thank you all for joining me. Here's what I see as a very fundamental question. In the United States, what is government supposed to do? What's its job? What's its purpose? The interesting thing about this question to me is that it's already been very clearly answered. It's called the preamble of the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution for the United States. Specifically in the areas of mayhem caused by Trump's using American troops to turn their guns on American citizens in American cities, as his administration launches attacks on immigrants and those who look, sound, or may even know an immigrant. Is that ensuring domestic tranquility? Also, is shutting down the government, furloughing federal workers, firing others, and denying women, infants, and children, the elderly, disabled, and the American poor and working poor food assistance, is that promoting the general welfare of the country? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Well, folks, welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each program, my guests and I connect the dots between current events and the broader historic context in which they occur. Let's take a quick look at a couple of headlines. First, Trump warns Supreme Court ruling could lead to ruination. The U.S. president warned of America's ruination if the Supreme Court rules against him on tariffs. They're going to hear oral arguments on November 5th in two suits brought by small businesses challenging his authority to impose tariffs, which are the very foundation of his so-called trade policy. They argue the power to set tariffs rests with Congress, not the president. And so what's really at stake here, beyond the tariff issue, is presidential authority and whether or not the court is going to rein him in or let him go. Trump also suggests he will cut down funding to New York if Mamdani wins. He said the New York's federal funding would be at risk if it elects the Democratic Socialist Zohan Mamdani as mayor. He said this Sunday on a 60 Minutes interview, calling Mamdani, who is currently well ahead in the polls and looks set to win the election, called him a communist, adding that it's going to be hard for me as president to give a lot of money to New York, because if you have a communist running New York, all you're doing is wasting the money you're sending there. Obviously, he doesn't know the difference between a communist and a socialist. And I really didn't realize that calling someone a communist, that hasn't been a threat since 1950 anyway. And finally, he's threatening military intervention in Nigeria. He said the government needs to do more to protect Christians, or he may go in guns a-blazing. All right. Well, the issue before us is voters will head to the polls tomorrow for municipal elections across this country. And a lot of people are paying a close attention to California with Prop 50, New York with the mayor's race, New Jersey with the governor's race, and Virginia with one of the most diverse slate of candidates for top offices possibly in history. My guest, veteran radio and TV political analyst, host of News Views with Garland Nixon on KPFK in Los Angeles, 90.7 FM, and WPFW 89.3 FM in Washington, D.C., and Garland Nixon on YouTube. That means it's Garland Nixon. Man, what's going on?
Hey, not a whole lot. Great to talk to you again. And I'm not on KPFK anymore, but I am still on WPFW.
Well, you should be. So let that be my message to them. You need to be back on KPFK. How about that?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. So but a lot of stuff for us to cover. My thoughts to you about my thoughts. I want to get your thoughts on the open, and because one of the things, man, that I think is really missing from this dialogue, particularly on the side of the Democrats who have truly lost their way. What is the purpose of government? Because it doesn't seem as though these folks are doing their job. Your thoughts, Garland Nixon?
Yeah, I think there's two questions. And one of them is, what is the purpose of government? And the other is, what is the purpose and definition of an opposition party? Because just because you're the minority party doesn't, in fact, make you the opposition party. And as Trump does all kinds of unthinkable things that, a lot of Americans would be unhappy with, that will not in any way improve the situation in our country or in the world, there needs to be a voice spoken against those things. And just saying Trump is a bad guy, or vote for us because Trump is a bad guy, or pointing out that Trump is doing things that are not in the best interest of most people, isn't good enough. As you and I always discuss, you have to present a credible alternative. You have to say, look, but if we're in power, this is what we'll do. And again, the problem that the Democrats have also is that they had 4 years under Biden, and the 4 years under Biden looked so much like the 4 years under Trump, except, they were a little, the decorum was a little bit better, but the foreign policy looked terrible. Money going out. Oh, we've got to send more money for Ukraine and or Israel, whoever the heck the money has to go through, more money to buy missiles to confront China, etc. As the day-to-day lives of Americans have gotten worse off. So they have two problems. Number one, they're not presenting credible alternatives or anything. And number two, even if they do, they've lost the trust of most Americans so much. So we're in a position, some may argue there's some good points about it, wherein Americans are looking at the two parties and saying, I don't see enough difference. I don't see something that's going to make my life better. What am I even doing? And then you end up with people staying home. That's what you end up with, a lot of people that just don't go to the polls.
And, for those listening that might think that you're just spewing rhetoric, the numbers support exactly what you're saying. Some of the most recent polling from Ipsos and I think Quinnipiac is indicating that Trump's numbers are now around 44%, just simply job approval numbers, 44%. People people being satisfied with his performance on the economy, around the same, and the Democrats' numbers are worse than his. That is some data to back your point.
Yeah, and it's not just the Democrats' numbers. I'll look every now and then, and I'll look, and there's Hakeem Jeffries or one of these, right? And you look at them in their face. Have you noticed I guess we'll use this term charitably, leadership of the Democratic Party? They all have this deer in the headlights look, and they know that the Gaza situation has been devastating. And they know that if they have, and I'm even starting to see it happen, if they have these town halls or whatever, inevitably people stand up and ask them questions that they really can't answer about the situation in Gaza. So, you have some glaring weaknesses, ideological weaknesses, some glaring political weaknesses with Donald Trump and the Trump administration. But it seems to me that the Democrats don't know how to exploit them. And I think that's principally because they have so lost touch with their traditional constituency that all they got left a bunch of people who, okay, I'm going to be a Democrat no matter what, and I hate the Republicans, the team players. Well, I'm on the blue team, so I got to vote for the blue team because the red team is bad. Sure, there's a certain percentage of Americans that will do that, but there are a lot of other people that are looking at their, the kitchen table issues. And I just don't see anything coming out of the Democratic Party's camp that's going to suddenly wake up that constituency that seems to be, asleep at the wheel, just saying, I don't see anything in it for me. I think I'll go rake leaves on election day.
Well, I take minor issue with your point because I think the Democrats very clear. I don't think it's a matter of they don't know what to do. And I don't think it's a matter of they don't know what to say. I believe that as a result of Citizens United, especially, that so much money has been poured into both sides. They're two wings on the same bird. So when you look at, look at the Gaza issue. There was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, when the stereotype was the Democrats were the party of peace and the Republicans were the party of war. But the Ukraine fiasco, thank you, Joe Biden. To your earlier point, it's just a matter of presentation. Uncle Joe walking around with his pajamas eating ice cream had a much softer, nicer, homey delivery. Donald Trump is just a crass ass, but the policies are the same. Joe Biden didn't do a damn thing to stop the genocide in Gaza. Kamala Harris didn't do a damn thing to stop the genocide in Gaza. And contrary to popular belief, this so-called peace plan ain't doing a damn thing to stop the genocide in Gaza. It's business as usual. Final point. The former head of Boeing, Calhoun, the former head of Boeing Defense Systems, when asked who did he prefer, Joe Biden or Donald Trump, his answer was, don't make me no difference. Doesn't matter to Boeing. We gonna get paid anyway. So, Garland.
And let me add this, you have to, as one of the things we all talk about, what you need in politics when two people are running, when two candidates, two parties are running, is some kind of difference between the two, some kind of a contrast. So you can say, my person will do this, and some kind of a contrast, not just a contrast, but a contrast, not like, well, that person's a vampire and I'm a werewolf. Well, that's a contrast, but it's not a realistic one. What I mean is this, example, Virginia. In Virginia, you've got someone running for, and I look, there's a black lady, I forgot her name, but she seems kind of kooky. I mean, she seems like out in space, and I'm like, okay.
No, Garland, huh? Not kind of kooky. Homegirl flat out tripping.
Exactly. So you got, they're running somebody.
Winsome Earl Sear.
She's out in space.
Yes, she is.
Now, they run this person, and I look and say, geez, she's out in space. But who do you run against her? A former CIA analyst. A person from, so you have this person that a lot of people will look at and say, oh, geez, yeah, she's doesn't seem like she's very competent to run things. She will be a competent administrator. She seems similar to Trump. These policies are all ideological and they don't really make sense in the normal context of politics. They don't make sense. Even in the bad context of politics that we have in the United States, they don't make sense. She seems like she's just an ideologue who seems kind of goofy. What in the hell is she talking about, right? But when you put her against this system person and someone looks and says, oh boy, she's kind of kooky. What do we have over here? Well, we've got the Democrats running the former CIA person. People stay home then. People are like, well, I mean, I don't want her. She's off the hook. But I don't really necessarily know that I want to put another CIA person. The Democrats, so they end up, instead of having a credible opposition to, they always expect you to hold your nose anymore and vote for the Democrat. They expect you to say, sure, the Republican person is out in left field. Well, then they put some milquetoast former CIA, longtime political operative who has taken positions that you really know you don't like. And they basically say, hold your nose and vote for the Democrat. And that's just not working anymore. People hold their nose, but they can stay home holding their nose. And that's what we end up having, where there's not someone that makes people want to come out. It's like, former CIA, did I really? You know what I'm saying? That's the party now.
And to that point, not only is she former CIA, but nobody's even asking, what did you do while you were there? Did you work with Gina Haspel? Nobody, who for those who don't know, Gina Haspel was a former CIA director, and her nickname was Bloody Gina. Nobody has asked, because I'm not going to indict someone simply because they worked for the CIA. So before I do indict them, what I want to know is, what did you do? And so I haven't even heard people. In fact, I just had this conversation with a dear friend of mine earlier today. That very same point. Nobody is asking the question, Abigail Spanberger, what did you do as a CIA analyst? What was your job? Because Garland, here's why I'll say, Ray McGovern worked for the CIA for 27 years. I love Ray McGovern to death. And Ray is on the right side of the issues. So that's the distinction that I'm going to. And another guy, a guy
Larry Johnson, John
Kiriakou, wonderful human being. So that's why I say I'm not going to just indict her, but to just roll her out there and say that CIA in her vitae is supposed to be credible. No, it's not.
Yeah, and we hear what they have, that what a John or a Ray or a Larry, we hear what they have to say on the issues. They're very transparent.
Mm-hmm.
This is, and you hear that and you're like, I like that with her. I mean, she is running for a local, for a state office, sure, and she should speak on state things. But recently, I don't know if you saw, Crystal Ball had this woman, I think her last name was Slotkin. She was former CIA, that they interviewed and asked about the Gaza issue, and she was just an absolute disaster. She wasn't that was a big mistake by the Democrats to put her out. But I think what we're saying is something more profound, and that is, ultimately, what is the Democratic Party today? What has it become when when the thing that makes them angriest, when I remember when the Democrats, the first go around, and like one of the things that they got out and protested against the most, one of the things that infuriated them the most, if you remember, is when Trump fired Jefferson Beauregard Sessions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's a lot of things I'm mad about Trump about. There's a lot of things policy-wise. But firing Jeff Sessions, that's not my fight. That guy is the KKK in persona. So I'm going to get mad. Or they'd fire, he'd do something with what's his name, the Walrus guy or something, and the Democrats would get mad over someone who is just a regime change. The only reason they're not a Republican is because if they think the Democrats are more for war, they'll go wherever they can get more war, right? And I'm like, what the Democratic Party has become is something different. It's a foreign policy. I'll put it like this. Let me put it a different way. The focus is on foreign policy. And Americans are now looking for a party and for politicians who will focus on this economic deterioration that we're experiencing. And they can't find anybody. And here's what makes it so bad. It's an easy road for the Democrats. If they wanted to win, and if their focus was on winning, all they'd have to do is focus on kitchen table issues. But when the checks are coming from the big guys up in Hollywood or, on Wall Street, kitchen table issues aren't at the top of their priority list. And now they could end up, really not making any headway with Trump here, with the Republicans here. And that would be disastrous for them.
To that point, I don't have any evidence of this. This one is just my opinion. I give kudos to Hakeem Jeffries for taking up this issue of the Affordable Care Act tax issues, subsidies. I give the Democrats kudos for that. But I think they stumbled into that one because 3 months ago, what was the issue? The Epstein files. You're not releasing the Epstein files. You're not releasing the Epstein files. And they were gaining a modicum of traction on that point, but it wasn't really getting them where they felt they needed to be. And I think they stumbled on the Affordable Care Act subsidy issue, saw that it was turning into a winner for them, and they've run with it. I say that to agree with you. The kitchen table issues, the things that really should be at the core of their platform, are not really being mentioned. So what they should be doing is not only talking about the Affordable Care Act and healthcare, but they should also be talking about all the tangentially related economic issues that would have a deep resonation with all these folks that are struggling to make ends meet and put food on the table. Garland.
Yeah, I think you're right. A good point. And the problem, again, the problem they have is, we talk about their platform kitchen tables issues, but if the only thing you've got to run on is something that you stumbled into, which is legitimate, but if you had to stumble into something, what that really means is you don't really have a platform.
There you go.
Well, no, I'll put it a different way. You don't have a platform. As Hillary Clinton used to say, you have what she say, you have public issues and private issues or something like that, public positions and private issues. That maybe you have and this is the worst, that people are saying, well, maybe they got a platform. Well, they do have a platform because they talk to their donors. We just don't know what the platform is. And whatever the platform is, it's not doing anything for us. It's not working for us. And again, the 4 years of Biden, you had 4 years to do something. 4 years now, okay, the subsidies is an issue. But when you came in, you said, we're going to do a public option to fix Obamacare, and you didn't even make any effort to do it. They didn't even make an effort and lose. They gave us a list of things. We were going to do something about student loans. They didn't make an effort and lose it. Well, are you going to do anything? We would, but the Senate parliamentarian or the janitor, somebody told us we can't, so we can't. So even now, they don't seem to have a platform. They seem to be stumbling. And if they came up with a credible platform, and that's something you lose. Would anybody believe them when you were in for 4 years? And the best you could do is try to charge Trump with everything in the world. They charge him with 50 million different things, in which I would argue helped them. I would argue that them charging Trump with all of these things, not respective of whether you think they're true or false, the fact that you charge him with all of these things ultimately kind of gave him bona fides, kind of gave him street cred. There were people that looked at it and they're like, well, this whole system's trying to get Trump. Trump must be anti-system. He must be an anti-politician. I'll vote for him. Well, that Trump's not an anti-system, anti-politician. He is the system and politics. But they helped create an environment where people could believe something, where Trump could run as a rebel, by going after him instead of charging Trump with 50 different things, suing him, investigating for everything. Why not take the policies that Trump is advocating and go toe to toe with him on that? Because that's a winning strategy. But I think part of it too is, though they're not as crass and though they're not as, belligerent and all of that stuff as Donald Trump, the problem is on a lot of the policies that are of consequence, they kind of agree with him. They just don't like him.
Right. Absolutely right. They're just the better polish on the scam. And before we move on, because I want to move to a lot of the international things, but Rampel since 01 made the point, Obama is campaigning with her as I think he's assuming Abigail Spanberger.
Yeah.
He was also in New Jersey with Mikey Cheryl, I think her name is. I had this conversation with my students today. You see a pattern here with the Democrats and Obama. They roll him out at the very end because he really this past week, but really this past weekend is when you really saw him front and center, and he's really demonstrating now. And this is no revelation, but this is just further evidence of the point. He's nowhere near the progressive individual. His politics are just old school establishment Democrat Party politics. The bloom is definitely off the rose. Spanberger would have been better served with Michelle Obama, not Barack Obama.
You know, what's interesting, and that is, with Harris, they were like, okay, it seems like this, that the Democratic Party is still, they tried to play like, oh, we're standing for the minorities, but when it comes to actually doing things for the Black community and all, they never seem to actually come through, right? And I think that, like Harris at the last, they're like, okay, we'll roll Obama out and he'll bring all the Black people in and we'll get all the Black folks. All we got to do is stick Obama out. And they're just like, we're going to hold Obama till the end. And the last few weeks, that's what they do all the time. The last few weeks, out comes Obama and all the Black people will follow him like the Pied Piper. He'll play a pipe and he'll head for the polls and they'll all follow him. And
not anymore.
Yeah, look. You remember this? Barack Obama was like going after Black men. Yes, I think you don't want to vote for Kamala because you're a bunch of racist, sexist pigs. Basically, Black vote men got to get themselves together and come out and vote for Kamala. And I'm thinking, they can't afford to feed their families. They can't pay their college loans. They're struggling. You're talking to them about identity politics. And, I know Black folks who I actually know. I have a Black cousin who voted for Trump. And it was, you know what? The Democrats haven't done nothing. I voted for them my whole life. And I didn't agree with them. I voted, third party. But my point is, Black folks are just like everybody else. They're out here working, trying to eat. And just saying, here's a man in Black skin. He's Black. Remember him? He's the guy with the beautiful Black family. But your life didn't even materially improve under him either. And there you go, a Black face. Vote for Black folks. Kind of like they use them like a scarecrow to stick them up. They're like a reverse scarecrow. We'll stick them up in the field, and all the Black folks will come around and vote for them. It doesn't work anymore. You're going to have to. Black voters ain't stupid. You're going to have to deliver for Black voters. Now, hopefully, a lot of them learned their lesson about Trump. But I understand the desperation they were in. They would try any port in a storm. But yeah, that Obama stuff, that's done. The idea you can roll him in and not that you can bring Obama out and not deliver. And somehow by not delivering for the working class, they're going to vote for you because of his face. Oh, it's not happening.
And he's on the wrong side of the Mamdani issue. He's on the wrong, which when I heard that, then that was the signal to me that oh man, you're just no more than a blackface on what the minstrel show on the Democrat Party platform. There's nothing progressive there. There's nothing to deal with folks trying to eat. Let me do this. Let me thank Carol Asbaram for her generous contribution. Thank you, Carol. People know that both parties are in the pocket of the elite class. We need a new party and a new system. Jonathan Soul, thank you very much. Love it when the band gets back together. I won't debate that one. I won't do Simon and Garfunkel. I don't know. Biggie and Tupac. I don't know. Anyway, I'm showing my age there with Simon and Garfunkel.
Moe and Curly. How about we go?
So on the international front, Russia warns U.S. over Afghanistan. Sergei Lavrov has been very clear. The deployment of military infrastructure of any third countries. Oh, my thing just left me. I'm sorry. Hang on a second. the deployment of military infrastructure of any third countries on the territory of Afghanistan, as well as on the territories of neighboring states, is categorically unacceptable under any pretext. And Garland, when he says on the territories of neighboring states, he's taken us right back to the Ukraine argument. He's taking us right back to that reality and being very, very clear on this is not acceptable. Garland.
Well, and what I hear also is he's neighboring states. To me, sounds like he's talking about that the Zanzor Gap or whatever they wanted to buy right off near Iran. And Iran basically said, you do that, we're going to war. And it is the United States saying nobody, Russia, China, you can't come in the Western Hemisphere, you can't ally with Venezuela, blah, blah, blah. But we can ally with anybody we want on your border, and we can build all the military
dominance.
Exactly. And those days just ain't going anymore. It ain't happening. And Russia's saying it isn't happening, and they've proven it. And Iran basically said, if you try to move into the Zanzor Gap, that means war. Countries are now saying, look, you do not have the economic and military power to dominate us anymore, and we will defend our interests. And the United States has to make a decision. It's like a guy standing there and somebody saying, I'm going to take your wallet, and the guy says, you might, but I ain't handing it to you. You're gonna have to come get it. You have to here, let me set my wallet behind me. You can get past me, you can get the wallet, but we're gonna find out. You can get that wallet, but you're gonna have to fight for it. And I think what countries are starting to say, you can do this or that. But we say, no, it's unacceptable. And if you do that, you're going to have to fight for it. And countries are now recognized. The United States is spread thin all over the world. The United States is technologically falling behind. We see these other countries introducing. Iran is technologically superior to us right now. We can't do nothing with Iran. We don't have hypersonic missiles. Yemen could throw missiles at Israel anytime they would shoot one missile. It would go through all of our air defenses and land right in the middle of Israel. So these countries have demonstrated that they have the capability to defend themselves. And they're starting to put a question to the United States and say, okay, you want to dominate in our region. Are you willing to go to war to dominate in our region? And again, even the Afghans have said, no, you want Bagram Air Force Base. No, you can't have anything, which means there's only way you can get it to come take it. And how'd that work out last time you came to Afghanistan to take our stuff? Not going to happen. So what we're seeing with Trump, too, is a lot of boisterous, bragging and threatening. He's going to attack Nigeria. He's going to attack everybody. But when it comes to actually pulling the trigger, you'll notice Trump talks and steps up to the line. I think he's very hesitant right now to attack Venezuela, and wisely so, I might add. But we don't have the domination. 16,000 troops, really? You're going to attack Venezuela with 16,000 troops? They ain't gonna make out real good if you do it.
This didn't get a lot. I don't think this got a lot of coverage or discussion. But for the sake of argument, let's say 2 weeks ago, when it was right before Zelensky, I think, was coming to the White House, and Donald Trump was talking about tomahawks into Ukraine, and Medvedev came out and said, I'll paraphrase, if you do that, you've crossed a red line, and it'll become very, very dangerous for the United States and for you personally, Donald Trump. You know as well as I the diplomatic structure and the diplomatic dialogue, and a lot of times you've got to listen to what's not said before you really pay attention to what is said. For a diplomat to come out and say, Mr. President, this is going to be dangerous for you personally. And President Putin didn't come back and say, oh, he was just drunk. Oh, he didn't really mean that. Oh, no. Lavrov didn't come back and, as they love to say now, walk that back. I hate that term, but he never, they let that one stand. Not only was that a very clear message, I think the message was was received, because now Trump just came out today and said, no tomahawks in Ukraine anytime soon.
One thing about Trump, and I'm not saying it's good, bad, or different. I'm just, Trump is a guy who's got a lot, from growing up, in the street. He's one of them guys that got a lot of mouth. He's threatening everybody. He's going to beat everybody up. He's going to take everybody's lunch money. He's going to do all of that. But when he gets up to that line and his toes are at the line, Trump's real hesitant to cross that line.
He's that drunk that gets thrown out of the bar every Friday around 1:30 or Saturday morning around 1:30. Man, we're tired of this. Go home.
That's it. And so now I believe he's, like I said, Venezuela, I think he's getting real cold feet. I think people are telling him, hey, this is going to be a bad move and it could turn out real bad and destroy your presidency. I think that when it comes to, it was interesting, because Ray McGovern kept saying, no, they're not doing tomahawks. It's not going to happen. A lot of people are like, oh, they're going to Ray McGovern says it's not going to happen, not going to happen. And hey, Ray McGovern knows his stuff. Right. But whatever the case may be, it is a very serious thing to Russia if you threaten them. And one of the big things is because, let's face it, if you're in charge of a country, any country, if you're the leader of a country, you have to be in charge. You have to maintain, the people have to believe that you can defend their country. They have to have faith in you. They must have confidence in you as a leader. And that's something that could shake the confidence of the support for the Russian government. And I think they are saying, look, if you throw these, we got to do something. We have no choice. And this could go bad. And good and well, if it goes bad enough, it ain't going to miss you. You know what I mean? That's what the Russians keep saying. Hey, look, if there's a nuclear war, ain't nobody walking away from this. And I think they're reminding him, look, if this thing goes bad, you ain't walking away from it either. Nobody walks away from it. Don't think that you're throwing Ukrainian bodies on the front line again, or whoever, that you're throwing some proxy war, that you can throw the Filipinos or the Japanese or the South Koreans' body on the front line against China. You always want it. But if missiles start flying towards Moscow, it's going to go bad where, you know what I mean?
Wherever you are.
Yep. And you don't think that you're going to walk away from this. Nobody walks away. You're now going from, I'm going to talk about what happens in Kiev and whether or not you blow up Kiev or blow up, Kryvyi Rog or one of these other small. No, We're now talking about something that ain't no walking away from. So is that the game? Do you really want to do this, Donald Trump? Right. We're warning you.
In fact, Scott, you got a lot of folks, a lot of Democrats now, and particularly I hear it more from Black Democrats. So what do you think of this now? You didn't vote for Kamala, and look what you got. Oh, how do you like it now? But what they don't seem to understand is different problems mean you still have problems. So on the domestic front, would we be where we are as we are with? Probably not. But as Scott made the point right after the election, he said, if Kamala had won, he said, I give you 6 months and we would have been in a nuclear war with Russia. And a lot of folks don't want to have that conversation. But when she was asked about what would be the foreign policy differences between a Harris-Walz administration and the Biden-Harris administration, she says, none. Well, that Ukraine policy that the Biden administration was championing was taking us down the perilous rabbit hole of nuclear conflict. So, my saying that is not too much, supposition. it's based upon a lot of reality that came out of her own mouth.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with Scott 100%. I said it before. I said, well, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't, my ideology is far to the left of both of these parties. And, I'm about the government helping the people, but Medicare for all, stuff like that. Peace with everybody. Excellent. I said, but I might add, Kamala said she was going to keep Biden's team together.
Right.
I could show you the article. She says, well, it's going to be, I'm in a hurry and blah, blah, blah. And I got a lot to do. Well, I'll probably just keep the same foreign policy team, which I believe, we were heading for nuclear conflict. There was no other way around it because they were using ATACMS. As soon as they won, they just said, okay, let's go with the tomahawks now. And then we'll go. And they would win. And then before you know it, there's mushroom clouds everywhere and we're done. And now, for all the disaster of Trump, I don't know, we're going to live another 6 months, but we've made it this far. But the other part of it was this. I've had people say to me, well, if Kamala won this and that, and if Kamala won, and I'm like, if the Democrats were really concerned about winning, they would have done things that they didn't do. If their number one plan was winning, when a whole lot of Democrats looked at Biden and said he's got some problems, they would have made their move then. When a lot of Democrats looked at Kamala and said, oh boy, we got problems. Obama and his crew just couldn't stand her. There were a lot of Democrats that looked at her and said, she doesn't seem to be a competent politician. You mean to tell me, Democratic Party, that you couldn't find a better, more qualified, more politically attractive candidate than Kamala Harris? Of course you could. I could. I'm talking to one right now. I put it like this. It's hard to find one worse. So they're going to stick out the worst possible candidate and then get mad because they didn't win. Sitting on a bunch of policies, might I add, people in the Democratic Party are screaming about Gaza. And they wouldn't even allow a Palestinian person to speak at the convention. And they were going to be able to vet what the person said, make sure they didn't. And they just wanted an opportunity to speak. The Democrats said, no, you can't. At a time that a genocide was going on, they committed political suicide. Don't blame the voters. You had an opportunity, a Democratic Party, and you put out a bad product and you continued to push with a policy that 90% of the people in the party opposed. One last thing. I talked to someone who was about 30, and this was just after the election. And this person said to me, they were from New York. They said, like all of my friends in my age, none of them voted for the Democrats. I said, why? And he said, oh, because of Gaza. I mean, matter of fact, he said it was Gaza. Almost like everybody, no, of course. Why? Yeah, give me that. Of course, it was because of Gaza. They committed political suicide. Don't blame the voters.
I was at the convention. I spoke to the credentialed. The folks that wanted to speak were already credentialed, and they were on the property. They were sitting right outside the Coliseum door. They just wouldn't let them in the room. So it's not as though they had to go find somebody. They were credentialed like I was credentialed. The only difference was I was standing on one side of the door and they were outside protesting. So my point is, they had made it through security. They had made it all the way up to the arena and they weren't allowed in. I want to push back a little bit on your point about they couldn't find anybody. And Lee Ricks, thank you very much for that super sticker. To your point that they couldn't find anybody, the only adjustment I would make to that statement is they weren't going to find anybody who was willing to risk a run that late in the game. When we got to the middle of July and Biden is just deciding to get out of the race, the sensible, viable people were saying, look, I may only get one shot at this. I'm not going to risk it now. Newsom, what's her name from Minnesota? Gretchen Whitmer. They weren't going to, let Kamala take this hit because, again, once you lose, very rarely do you come back to win. And so That's the only exception I would take to the point that you made.
Yeah, and you know, I saw somebody in the chat say, "Oh, that's Kamala hate." To me,
Is Kamala
I
hate?
don't know. Yeah, he said it's Kamala hate. This Kamala hate is making me laugh. Here's what I have to say. To me, it's not about Kamala the person.
No.
My evaluation of her as a politician is that she was a very poor candidate. Politically speaking, she was a poor candidate. She did not speak well as a candidate. She wasn't on top of the policies, and at times she just seemed to drift and ramble. I thought she was one of the worst political candidates that I've seen. I mean, that's my I hate, love, not over. I just think she was a very poor political candidate, and I felt like by the time we got to the election, it was my opinion that the Democrats could have ran Mickey Mouse and the Republicans could have ran Minnie Mouse, and the Republicans would have won. At that point, my prediction by the time the party stood was, yes, Kamala's a poor candidate, and let's face it, Trump ain't the greatest candidate in the world by any stretch of the imagination. But based on what happened over the last 4 years, up to and including the issue in the situation in Gaza, I didn't see a path for the Democrats to win. So yes, the issue of who's running is of consequence in some instances, and in a lot of instances, it is of consequence. And I felt she was a poor candidate, but I didn't feel as though, to be quite frank, that they were in a position, that they put themselves in a position to win, that they put themselves in a position. They were going to have the diehards that say, I always vote Democrat. And Trump was going to have the people that say, I always vote Republican. Those are going to X themselves out, right? But when it comes to the people that are maybe don't normally vote, or maybe the young people that don't show up, or maybe the independents, I don't know. Okay. When it comes to all of those other people, I didn't see something the Democrats were presenting that would help them in any way get those people. And I saw Gaza, which would lose them. I read somewhere a poll that said of the people who voted for Biden in 2020 that didn't vote for Kamala, 30% of them said it was because of Gaza. So my opinion, okay, you can say you love Kamala, whatever. I felt she was a horrible candidate. Fair enough, regardless. But notwithstanding the names of the candidates, particularly because of Gaza and because of their almost myopic focus on foreign policy, it seemed. Remember, what was that? East Palestine, a train comes from whatever, crashes, there's all kind of stuff, and Biden didn't get there for 2 weeks. He's in Kiev or something.
Yeah, in Ohio.
Every time something happens, he's in Kiev. I think people looked at the Democrats and said, they're a foreign policy team, and we need somebody to vote for us. And all the factors together, whether you like or hate Kamala, I don't feel they were in a position to win.
No, not with the mistakes that they made on the front end. And they ran, and we'll move on, right? We'll move on after this. They ran a warmed over Hillary Clinton campaign. When you look at the folks that were involved, they were Hillary Clinton people. When you look at the tactics that were used, they were from the Hillary Clinton playbook. This was warmed over Hillary Clinton. It didn't work for her then. It didn't work for Kamala. And Lee, man, this ain't Kamala hate. We just, this is the truth, partner. And Lee Ricks, thank you. And Sandra Brown, thank you very much for that $20 super sticker.
How about this? When they I forgot what I was going to say.
Sandra Hearn. I'm sorry. I said Sandra.
Yeah. No, I forgot what I was. Got mixed up. But the bottom line is this: ultimately, I just felt like as a party, you have to have a vision. And the vision that the other guy is bad, a vision. There's a term people use, visionary, and it don't even have to be a really good vision. You have to have some vision, and you have to be able to show people that you'll deliver from. You've been in for 4 years. Trump hasn't. So Trump can make all kind of promises. Remember, Trump went to the Muslims in Detroit and says, yes, you vote for me and I'll stop the genocide. Well, of course, he was lying. He's Trump, but he wasn't in for 4 years, so he had the room to lie. You had been in, and it was going on. So he was playing the game from the outside. He could say, Trump, he could make any kind of promises. He ain't planning on keeping them. He's going to make them. But you were in a position where people were saying, whatever you say to me, I have to square that with what's happened for the last 4 years.
With your record.
And as in the words of the tuna, you are what your record says you are. And you are clapping when Juan Guaido come. Remember this? Juan Guaido, they bring him, Trump brings him in. There's all the Democrats standing up. And I'm like, I thought y'all hated Trump. He brings in Juan Guaido. Yeah, you're clapping like seals. I thought somebody was going to throw a mackerel or something to Nancy Pelosi. She's standing right behind Trump. Now, there was some other paper or something that she had of Trump. She tears that up and throws it away. But when he's talking about regime change in Venezuela, oh, there'll never be any socialists in America. Well, how about we get a little bit of socialist health care? We'll take some of that. You know what I mean? So,
or the tax, the transference of wealth through the big ugly bill.
You told us that you were there for 4 years, and what'd you say? We're going to do something about the Trump tax cuts. Great, tax cuts for the billionaire. They wouldn't touch them. Didn't even try. So you got a 4-year record. That's why at that point, I'm like, Mickey Mouse could run against them. They can't win. And I think you're right. I think that some of the people who saw themselves as having a chance to become president looked at the environment and said, yeah, we ain't winning this one. Just let Kamala go ahead and do it. She's a bad candidate. And then we won't even have to we can just say we ran a bad candidate. In fact, remember afterwards, it came out, they were saying, we told her not to go prancing all over the place with Lynn Cheney. People were coming out saying, we told you not to pull a Hillary and go trying to, I've got to get all the Republican votes. You ain't going to get the Republican votes, and you will lose Democrat votes trying to get the Republican votes. That was Hillary. You're right. That was exactly Hillary.
And this is hate? No, this is fact. As Malcolm said, if my telling you the truth makes you angry, don't get angry at me. Get angry at the truth. Iran Supreme Leader says cooperation with U.S. not possible while it backs Israel. Cooperation between Iran and the U.S. is not possible as long as Washington continues to support Israel and to maintain military bases and interfere in the Middle East region, according to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. I think when you take that statement and in the context, Garland, in which it's framed, and then go back to the story of Lavrov saying, don't think about bases in Afghanistan and surrounding regions. Now you're getting this in stereo, Garland.
And you got to add something else to it. And that is, and I think this is critical, Iran has proven that they can fight. You know what I mean? I mean, some people can talk trash, and you got to say, you know, the U.S. can say, I'll punch you in the nose, and Israel punch you in the nose, and they got to like, well, maybe they'll punch me in the nose, but I'm going to stand up to them. The last time you sicked Israel on them, they swatted them like a fly in 12 days. Israel had to go running to Uncle Sam begging, please pull this fool off of me before he beats me to death, right? So Iran, if you notice, and add this, and the attacks on Iran brought the people of Iran closer together. They circled the wagons, right? So Iran is talking with more strength internally because the government of Iran can now say, you can forget that regime change stuff. The people are supporting us in our defense. And you can forget coming over here to beat us up because we've already showed you we can bloody your nose in a hurry. And our friends are helping us build, you know, more air defense, and we're getting more planes and this and that. So we beat you up last time, and we've been in the gym working out. We're stronger than we were before. So it's interesting because, number one, it's Iran taking a obstinate position saying, hey, you know what? You ain't gonna push me around. I'm gonna live my life the way you want. But number two, because they have proven their ability to defend themselves with strength and honor, and that they can defend themselves, and yet all of that business about somehow you're going to attack them and the house of cards will fall apart and all the people will overthrow the government, that you know, dog don't hunt no more. So they are in a different position now than they were in the past, I think. And they're speaking with that confidence that they can defend their interests. I think that's important.
You know, when you look at the show is called Connecting the Dots. So when you look at Joe Biden telling us we're going to turn the ruble into rubble, and that change, that dynamic within the Russian economy was going to cause such internal disruption that they would run Putin out of Russia on a rail. We tried regime change in Venezuela. We even declared their own president for him, even after they had already elected Nicolas Maduro. Didn't work. And to all that you've just said about Iran, there's one thing you left out. And all the spies that you thought you had in our country, we shot them. They're not here anymore. We shot them and buried them. So now, let's go.
Well, add this. And Iran also showed pictures and videos and data of things that their spies had gotten in Israel. Mm-hmm. So now they have showed the capability to infiltrate your defenses, to infiltrate your intelligence agencies, and to get in and steal information from you. So they've showed that they have international capabilities. They have not superpower, but regional power.
Regional power.
Yes, regional power in there to dominate, or at least, to dominate militarily, but at least to hold their own as far as intelligence. And you don't know what they got now, because they showed they can get in. So you don't know how much information they got. One of the things I saw Max Blumenthal talking about was under one of these skyscrapers. It was in Tel Aviv. There was some big, expensive building where people lived in. And that building, the base of the building got hit with these massive hypersonic missiles during the 12-day war. And afterwards, they kind of admitted Israel had a secret bunker under there. And Iranians blasted it. It was Israel's, like, one of their major intelligence and military bunkers. What we found was exactly the Iranians knew right where it was and sent a couple missiles right down their doorstep.
How do they know? One of the things that people listening to this conversation should take away should take from this is understanding the difference between the rhetoric and the reality. Because those that you can call this hate if you want to. Where are we wrong? You might not like it, understood, but give me some evidence to tell me that our analysis is wrong. And it's not. It's unpleasant in some regards. It's unsettling in some regards. It's counter to the dominant narrative in all regards. But it isn't wrong. Garland.
Yeah. If I say Kamala Harris was prior, we both talked about this prior to the election, like she's a terrible candidate, and people got mad at me. Mm-hmm. And then after the election, people were like, well, I think Trump did. I said, wait a minute. The polls said she was going to get blown out. The polls said that she was going to lose she was behind in all of the battleground states. Mm-hmm. And she lost in all of the battleground states. Mm-hmm. So the polls said she was going to lose. The exit polls, when they asked people, who'd you vote for? Wasn't Kamala. The exit polls said, so the polls said she was going to lose prior to the election. The exit polls said she was going to lose. And then she lost. If you put that data set together, it seems that we were pretty much right. And it ain't about us liking or hating her. We did an evaluation of the data sets that we had and used maybe some intuition and said, based on what I've seen historically watching elections, if you're losing in all the battleground states in the polls, you may pull a couple of them out. Mm-hmm. Maybe, but you ain't going to win the election. And as soon as they called Ohio early, I'm like, oh, man, about 5 minutes in, they're like, oh, you lost Ohio. It was but Florida's gone. Goodbye. It's over. But none of us were shocked. And it wasn't even about liking or hating Kamala. It comes down to this. And I think that's what we're talking about. If the Democrats are going to be an opposition party, they have to have policies that oppose the policies of the Republicans. You can't be a faux opposition. You can't be a rhetorical opposition party. You have to be a substantive oppositional party. And the reason when I say substantive is the substance is, it doesn't always come back to this. People cannot pay their student loans. People can't pay the rent. The damn rent's too high. Simple things. People all those years are thinking, and I still remember the way that guy, his face, the damn rent's too high guy that was running in New York. Why? Because guess what? Because the damn rent's too high.
Jimmy, you're talking about Jimmy McMillan.
Exactly.
The rent is too damn high party. In fact, because I've been saying since Mom Donnie came out, I said, this is Jimmy McMillan 2025. And people clowned McMillan. He was a buffoon. Oh, Jimmy McMillan. And there was humor to his thing. And there beyond that slogan, there wasn't a whole lot of there wasn't a lot of meat on that bone. But folks, Zoran Mamdani is Jimmy McMillan with some substance.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, and when it comes to Mamdani, it's the same as I'll say about Kamala. Look, there's things about Mamdani that bother me. Him saying, "Oh, Maduro's a dictator," or something like that. I got my issues with that. But notwithstanding that, not judging him as good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know him, and you never know till somebody gets in office what they're going to be. But there's some significant issues, not the least of which being one of the things that you're told in American politics is if you don't support Israel, 100% you can't win. And him winning and opposing Zionism, is going to, I think, inspire people who may not run to say, well, wait a minute, he was opposed to Zionism and he won, so I'll run. As I said, he kind of burned me up when he's like, oh, yes, Maduro and Diaz-Canel, whatever his name, Diaz-Canel in Cuba, they did this and that. I'm like, I don't want to hear that crap. But still, notwithstanding all of that, he's doing the rents too high, and that's going to win. He's doing that kind of angle. The kitchen table issues is going to win. And of course, I think it's good for younger people maybe to look and say, you know what, I can run. And I can say I don't agree with Israel and Zionism or foreign policy or whatever it is that I'm told is the third rail. Whatever you do, you can't say this. And I think it's good for people to know that the third rail for the political elite class is not the third rail for the working class. That's where you need to go.
As we get out to that point, listening to the analysis of the last-ditch efforts of the campaign over the weekend, talking about New York. And they were talking about one reporter was at the Mamdani rallies and said they were packed. He went to 6 nightclubs on Saturday. In fact, one of my students asked me, what do you think about him going to the clubs? And I said, well, you got to go where your voters are. And I said, now, if I had been running and you saw my old behind in the club, well, then I'm fronting. That I'm pandering, because the last thing you want to see is me in the club. I said, but him, that's his environment. Those are his people. He went where the votes were. Then they talked about Cuomo and made the point that there's a lot less enthusiasm. The energy at his rallies was very low, but they said this: his contributions from Jewish millionaires is breaking the bank. And so this shows us, to your point about the mindset that could change, the people versus the banksters. And we're going to find out tomorrow who's going to carry the day. Because this is the thing that the Democrats are definitely afraid of, is the people regaining control of the platform. That's what they're afraid of. And that's what this that's what this could represent. You gotta start listening to the people. That's why the first 3 words of the Constitution are what? We the people. So we can close this as we opened it. My brother, Garland Nixon, man, thank you so much. Do me a favor. Maintain course and speed.
As always, thank you very much, brother.
Hey, so we're, as though people don't know, Where do people find you, Garland?
Oh, yes. You can find me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Telegram. Look up Garland Nixon. And of course, my YouTube show. I'm on there running my mouth all the time.
You're on
With
Stamp.
people like our friend Jim Kavanaugh had one the other day. People like that.
Hey, man. Again, man, really appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. All right, folks. Well, you heard it from me. You heard it from Garland. Garland, really appreciate that. And all the links are below. Tomorrow, folks, I think what we're going to do is I am going to give you analysis on a number of issues based upon some things that I see and I think are relevant. So if you would be so kind, join me tomorrow, and we'll handle it there. Hey, this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge. Talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. It'll be me. Until then, I am Dr. WILMER Leon. Have a blessed remainder of your day. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. WILMER Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.